Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this CPS webinar around Project for the Web and Project Online. We will make a start in about 1 minute's time. And yes, please just bear with us. Just waiting for a couple of additional people to join, and we'll be right with you. Excellent. We'll look to make a start. Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar, and thanks very much for giving up your lunch break, I guess, for many to join us on this. So, by way of introductions, my name's Sam Graver. I look after the professional services function here at CPS. My background is the deployment of project and program management solutions into customers utilizing the Microsoft 365 technology stack. I'm joined today by Chris, who I'm sure will give us an intro as well now.
Cheers, Sam. Afternoon also. I'm Chris. I work underneath Sam in the modern work management team as a consultant. So I've been working with the Microsoft stack for about 6 years now, primarily focused on project management in Project Online for the most part, but sort of over the last 2 years as we've been moving in towards a bit more Power Apps, focusing on Project for the Web as well. So I've got quite a bit of a background in both tools.
Fantastic, thanks, Chris. So we've set this webinar up today. So we are getting lots of questions from customers around Project Online, the future of Project Online, the differences between Project Online and Project for the Web. So we thought we'd run a webinar today just to run through a few bits and pieces. So we're going to start with a couple of polls just to ask you a few questions, see why you're here, see what tools you're currently using. We're then going to, Chris is going to give us an overview of the two tools we're talking about, so Project Online and Project for the Web. We're seeing a lot of development from Microsoft into Project for the Web and the Power Platform, so we'll spend lots of time focusing on that. We're obviously not seeing the enhancements to Project Online there used to be. It's still there as a product, but very much the focus from Microsoft is in Project for the Web and the Power Platform, or just Project as they're calling it now, if we're going by the name. So we'll have a look at the overview and the tools. We'll have a look at the differences in the capability. We'll then focus on the benefits of Project for the Web as a tool set. We'll talk to you a bit about Dataverse. So Project for the Web sits in Dataverse and allows us to do some quite simple and quite neat integration to other line of business systems, but particularly to other things within Microsoft 365, such as Power BI and Power Automate, Microsoft Teams. It all sits nicely in there. Then the bit that I guess everybody's looking for, so we will look to do a solution demo as well. Then we'll chat a little bit about moving to Project. So if you're currently using a tool and looking to move to Project, how that might look. And we'll also talk through some next steps, talk to you about some of our future webinars and actually some events that we're going to be at soon as well, which would be great to see a number of you at. So that's the agenda we're looking at today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off with a couple of polls. We've got 2 polls to start off with. First one is a nice simple question. So what are your expectations of today? So I'll leave this one open for just about 30 seconds or so for people to come in and just select one of the options to basically see why you're here today, to make sure that we can answer and look to answer the questions that you're looking to have. There will be a Q&A at the end. We'll look to leave around 10 minutes or so that we can run through some questions that people have. And of course, this will be recorded as well, and you'll be able to review back to it at a later point in time. So we'll leave open for a couple of minutes. I think we're almost, I say a couple of minutes, a couple more seconds. I think virtually everyone has voted. Thank you very much for joining in. That's fantastic. So that's our first poll. Our second one, so I'm going to close that poll now. I think we're at 90% of the people responded, so thank you or 93. So thank you very much, everyone who has. The next question is, what project tool or what tools do you currently use in your organization to manage your projects, programs, or entire portfolio? So there's a few options there. Obviously, top 4 being Microsoft related. Anyone who's surprised to see Excel there, don't be. There are a lot of organizations who manage their entire portfolio on Excel currently. And we see some really sophisticated, almost project management tools built solely within Excel. And they work really well to a level, but normally that jump from Excel to Project for the Web is a really common thing that people are to do. And then the other ones there, of course, because we are aware there are non-Microsoft tools out there as well. Again, we're up to 80% voted. So for those really interested, the highest answer for what tools are currently used is 70% of people. It's Excel. So there you go. So it's a good job. Oh, it's dropped to 69 now. So and 97% of you have responded. So again, thank you very much indeed. So I think for those of you using Excel, you'll really like what you see. I think when it comes to Project for the Web, it's definitely a step up from what you're doing within Excel. Lots more automation. So I think you'll really enjoy what we're seeing within Project for the Web. For those using Project Desktop, that was a very high answer as well. So there's lots of you using the Project Desktop client on its own, I guess, for scheduling and Gantt charts. I guess what you'll see from today's webinar is something like Project for the Web will still allow you to do that, but it will also allow you to capture all your risks and issues and documentation and automate some of your reporting as well. So excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So if we move on to the next slide, I will leave Chris to give you an overview of the couple of tools that we're looking at today.
Awesome. Cheers, Sam. So yeah, so we're going to start off just me focusing on sort of a brief overview of both the tools, basically what's available and what the differences are between both of the tools. Okay, so some of the things that some have, some of the other don't have. We'll just take a look at some of that. We're going to start off by taking a quick look at Project Online, what it is, where it's based, all of that. So to start with, Project Online is a SharePoint-based application. Okay, so it's built on SharePoint. It uses SharePoint as its baseline for sites, storage of data, all of that. It is basically a SharePoint site with Microsoft's project tool configured on top of it. Okay, so all of that data you have is based on SharePoint. If you've used SharePoint before, it'll be quite familiar in terms of how data is managed in terms of lists. Okay, within that tool, as I said, it's used with Microsoft's project scheduling tool, and they've built Project Online to use the Microsoft Project Professional tool as the main power for the scheduling, right? So Project Online allows us to interconnect Microsoft Project Professional and Project Online with each other to sort of create a enterprise solution, which has your sort of central source of the truth portfolio for all of your projects. And the benefit there is that it's using the already existing and quite powerful scheduling capabilities of Microsoft Project Professional, right? So if you've used Professional before, that's the tool Microsoft Project Online uses. If you haven't seen it before or haven't used it, it's just an in-depth scheduling tool that allows you to do quite a lot with tasks, resource, and demand management. With that comes quite a lot of maturity in a lot of cases, right? So Project Online is really quite a high maturity tool when it comes to in-depth scheduling and resource management. So it has a lot of capability. A lot of that capability lends itself to higher maturity project management, okay, because it gives that more complex breakdown of tasks and demand management. It also contains extra functionality for things like timesheets and pushing time back to schedules with timesheets and things like that. So it's a very good tool. It can be used, obviously, even if you're not high maturity, it can be used as a basic scheduler as well. So it can be quite a versatile tool. But obviously the benefit is the high end of it can be made to be quite mature from project management perspective. One of the things that Microsoft Project Online comes with, and a bit of a downside in some cases, but it can be very good as well, is the complexity of configuration. So as a tool, it, as I say, is very mature, but to get to a stage where you want to sort of, if you have a high maturity system, you end up with quite complex configuration. And one of the things you get with that is it's not super easy to sort of make Project Online modular. So say you are lower maturity coming into Project Online, starting off with a simple solution, and you want to then expand on it as you grow and build your PMO. It's not super easy to start building on it. You can do so, but the complexity of the configuration can both be a benefit and a bit of an issue at some points, depending. But really, the complexity also lends itself to longer times for configuration if you have those complex systems. But it's also a big benefit because it means you can do a lot with the tool if you know how to configure it, right? So it can be taken a long way but you could also see it as a drawback in the fact that the complexity can take longer to configure, can mean there's less resources available who know how to configure it, because it can be built to be quite a complex system if you build it that way. One of the downsides that comes with Project Online is its integration with other tools. So as I said, it's based on SharePoint. It does have reporting APIs that lend itself to Power BI, but in terms of integration and sort of bringing other tools in and having them access the system, it doesn't really have any sort of native integration with other tools. There are ways to develop sort of embedding and bringing different things in with some custom code, but out of the box, it doesn't really have any of that integration. And again, that lends itself to complexity where it can do certain things, but none of it's out of the box, and it takes some dev work to actually get it to a point where it can integrate with other tools, or the integration is a bit awkward and not super easy to use on a day-to-day basis for project managers within the system. So not the easiest to integrate. It's mostly a standalone tool for project management. You don't have things like Teams integration or integration with other areas of the Microsoft 365 stack, really. So one consideration to keep in mind when you are sort of choosing a tool, what are you currently using? Do you need integration with other areas? And what are you actually trying to get out of it? And then the last point around Project Online is the security model. So Project Online has a very in-depth security model that can be built to be very complex, again, if you need it to be. One of the main benefits of this is you can be very granular with security when it comes to Project Online. Okay, so say you have confidential projects, right? And you need those to only be seen by specific people. Project Online really allows you to be very granular at a permission level and say only specific people can see certain things, and you can get quite in detail with that model. Okay, so one of the big benefits there is that ability to have that in-depth security model once it's been set up and configured, right? That then also has implications with things like Power BI. You can use the security model from Project Online and do some things with Power BI so that you only see the projects in Power BI that you see in Project Online. So, you can use that there to actually build out reports that are also security trimmed, right? So overall, as a tool, I would describe it as a very powerful scheduling tool, Project Online, but I often find that project managers can find it hard sometimes to navigate around the tool, as it is sort of not as intuitive as other tools out there, such as Project for the Web, but at its core, it's a very good project management tool, provides in-depth scheduling, and has a really secure and in-depth security model, right? So that's our sort of Project Online. The next thing we have then is Project for the Web. So what's different, what's similar with Project for the Web? So Project for the Web, to start with, our Project Online was based on SharePoint. Project for the Web is based in Dataverse and utilizes the Power Platform. So immediately you're in the Power Platform environments, you get the benefits of integrating with other tools in there that we'll talk about. And all of the data is stored in Dataverse. Very easy to report data sets. There's no sort of issues with not being able to access certain data from reporting APIs when you're using Dataverse. It's all very nice and very easy to use. From a scheduling perspective, Project for the Web is more simplistic, yet it's still powerful enough scheduling for most levels of project management, right? So it doesn't have all of the capabilities that Project Online and Microsoft Project Professional have for things like demand, capacity tracking, seeing that sort of over time in sort of time phase data for tasks. It doesn't have quite as in-depth breakdown for that, but it has a reasonably powerful scheduling and timeline tool that I'll show during the demo a bit later that's mostly going to do you fine for day-to-day project management. If you get to a point where you need that in-depth resource breakdown, resource demand, capacity tracking on that time phase scale, then perhaps it's not going to provide everything, but it does quite a good job of showing you what you need. And as I said, I'll show you in the demo what it can do, and you'll be able to see that for yourself. One of the huge benefits with Project for the Web is integration with other tools, and one of those is reporting dashboards. So this is not just Power BI. Power BI, of course, can natively integrate directly into Project for the Web pages. You can have it on your different tabs, and again, I have some examples of that to show you. But it also comes with its own dashboards that are built into the tool. So not just Power BI based dashboards, but its own native dashboards where you can build sort of little charts and graphs and put them on pages and embed those. And then you can see that data very quickly and easily within the tool. So really good integration from a reporting perspective for Project for the Web, makes it super easy to see all your data whenever you need it, really. And that Power BI, same functionalities if you're using Power BI for Project Online. If it needs to be security trimmed, it can be. Power BI overall is a really good tool, and the fact that we can natively integrate it to Project for the Web makes our lives quite easy. Configuration complexity, so it's less complex at sort of the top end. So, again, it's a range, same as Project Online, but at the ceiling, it's a slightly less complex ceiling for configuration. And it's significantly more modular when it comes to configuration, right? So Project for the Web allows for very easy integration with sort of solutions, the way Power Apps works, because it's based on Power Apps. So it allows us to quickly move solutions around, add new things, add modules to Project for the Web, and it doesn't sort of have an impact if you need to add new functionality, whereas things, if anyone's used Project Online before, say you have a RAID log and you need to add new fields to it, it doesn't really update that very well for existing projects. But Project for the Web doesn't have that problem because of how it's been built. So the complexity is slightly less, which is a benefit because it makes it easier to build, but it also has some really nice features about it that make it a lot easier for adding on top of and building on the solution as you go. Some of the other great things about that are things like solution starters. So solution starters with Project for the Web are things like the Project Accelerator, if anyone's heard of that. It's basically an out-of-the-box set of configuration for Project for the Web. And because of how Power Apps works, all you have to do is download that solution, add it to your environment. It takes about half an hour, and then you have extra config, right? So the ability to just drag and drop extra modules to Project for the Web like that makes it very nice. And that also makes it very good for migrating between test and production environments, okay? Whereas Project Online may take days or even weeks, depending on complexity. You can migrate between a Project for the Web environment to another Project for the Web environment, within half a day. It's very easy to drag and drop solutions, and it makes life a lot easier from an IT perspective.
Have we lost you, Chris? I think we might have lost. We may have lost Chris's audio. In which case, I will. I have a copy of the slides, and I could share. So please bear with us 2 seconds. Bear with us 2 seconds, and we will switch presenter.
Don't know what's happened there. I think my presenter role just got taken over.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris. We lost you for a period of time there. That would be why. Quite a while. Stella, could you switch sharing back over to Chris, please? Thank you.
What point did I cut out? Was it during Project Online discussion?
No, we lost you at more open access and the integration with Teams.
Oh, okay, cool, right. I thought I missed like a whole slide. Awesome.
No.
Is my screen sharing again?
Yes, it is.
Cool. So I'll just reiterate the Teams piece. So I don't know what point I cut out there. So native integration to Teams comes out the box with Project for the Web. There's direct integration we'll talk about later when I get to the slide which shows which tools you can integrate with Project for the Web. But sort of a high level, you can create Teams projects, so you can actually integrate directly, create projects from Teams, manage them from Teams, all natively with the out-of-the-box project tool, right? So that comes straight. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there a bit. So that comes straight out of the box with Teams, and it's very easy to set up and start using. And it's great integration there. And then last thing, open access. So access for Project for the Web, this is the sort of security point that we touched on at the end of the Project Online slide. It is slightly more open, right? So Project for the Web is designed to be a more open-ended system that people have access to. It doesn't currently have capabilities to do things like confidential projects like Project Online can do. So it has a nice security model that it has a lot of detail and granularity to it, but it doesn't have that granularity at like a project to project level. You can do things with permissions like set them up so only people on the team can see them, but then that sort of restricts what you can do with other levels of permissions, like saying, can everyone see all projects? You can't then also have confidential projects. I've worked around this in the past by having literally just a separate environment that is a mirror environment and has confidential projects on that with only certain people having access to it. And again, back to how the Power App solutions work, those are super easy to set up because all you need to do is lift and shift all the solutions over, and then you have a perfectly mirrored environment. So I've done things like that in the past where confidentiality is a must requirement, but it is something to keep in mind when looking at the tool, that the security isn't as in depth. So that's pretty much a brief overview of the tools. I may have rambled for a bit of a while there, but that's sort of an overview into the two tools, Project for the Web and Project Online. So I will hand back to Sam to talk about some of the capability differences for the tools.
Thanks, Chris. So just going to just run through a couple of quick slides and then we'll get stuck into the demo. So in terms of capability differences, we get asked a lot of questions around, how does Project for the Web differ to Project Online in terms of, if you do certain things like resource management, financial management, the advanced scheduling and planning, and Chris has covered a lot of those off. And this is some tables that you can find on the Microsoft website and where they compare what's going on in Project for the Web and Project Online. You'll see on the right-hand side, there's a number there with a CPS logo. So one of the things that we as a partner have recognized is there are some gaps in functionality, particularly around resource management, financial management, and timesheeting. So if any of you use timesheeting at the moment in something like Project Online, that doesn't exist as it stands within Project for the Web. But Chris also mentioned the use of solution accelerators and modules, and what we've developed is a number of solution accelerators that actually help plug some of those gaps. So when we work with our customers, if they want to do timesheeting, and particularly if they're looking to move from something like Project Online into Project for the Web, and timesheeting is a really important thing for them, then we've actually got a solution accelerator in that space that we can use. So we're working with and do work very closely with Microsoft, and they come and speak to us a lot to ask what features next to put into Project for the Web, and we can give real world customer feedback to Microsoft to impact the development and the way that the product is being developed moving forwards. But we do have solution accelerators in a number of those spaces as well, which I just wanted to just point out on this slide. Chris, do you want to go to the next one? So why use Project for the Web? So very quick slides. There's some animation on this, Chris, that you're welcome to run through. This is just the benefits of using a PPM solution. So a number of you are using Excel currently, as we got from the module earlier. So moving from that, Excel or standalone solution into a solution such as Project for the Web will bring you a number of different benefits, and Chris will cover some of these in the demo. But having that single version of the truth, everything in one place, is really important. Going around in a clockwise fashion, being able to automate your reporting, track your tasks really well, whether those are tasks within plans, whether they're tasks within simple milestone plans, but actually being able to see what's being done and when. The collaboration element, so the integration within Teams and the other Microsoft 365 services as well, enables you to collaborate much nicer than it would via, say, an Excel spreadsheet. We can manage documentation. The documentation inside Project for the Web will sit within SharePoint, so we get all the native functionality that you get within SharePoint within Project for the Web too. We can track time. So as I say, we've got a timesheet add-in. We can track, the amount of time being spent on different projects if we want to. There's a really nice, simple scheduling engine that enables you to look at tasks as a Gantt chart, as a Kanban board, or just as a list if you want it to. And more importantly, it gives you some repeatable processes that you can use across all projects and all work that you've got within your organization. So people aren't doing things in different ways because they're having to use the same, I'll say, corporate tool set that you're using without necessarily doing things differently in standalone versions of Microsoft Project or standalone versions of Excel. If you just want to move on, Chris. In terms of reporting, so there's a couple of examples of Power BI reports in here. So again, you can animate these through, Chris, just to show in a portfolio dashboard, portfolio milestones, resource dashboards, and task overviews. We'll look at some of these in much more detail when we look at the live demo in a second. But and I've also just noticed a typo at the top of that slide, so apologies. I'm sure everyone else has noticed that as well. That's absolutely on me. But there's some really nice reporting that we can produce from these tools as well, which is really difficult to use if you're looking at standalone versions of Excel or standalone versions of Project. This reporting can be very, very manual and take project managers or PMOs an awful lot of time to pull together. Whereas by utilizing something like Project for the Web with Power BI, you can actually save a huge amount of time and report on this stuff very, very easily. Chris.
Awesome, cheers, Sam. So yeah, so just going to briefly touch on the Life in Dataverse and some of the integration points there. So I mentioned it when I was speaking about the two tools, but one of the big benefits of Project for the Web is the integration with other tools. So we will see some of it, such as the Power BI, when we look at the demo itself, but you have this native integration with these other tools across Microsoft 365, right? So direct integration with embedded Power BI reports. I mentioned that the reporting data model itself is also easier to use than Project Online's, at least without third-party tools. So Power BI is a really simple, easy to use and powerful tool for reporting. We also have that native Teams integration. So I said talk about it a little bit more. I won't spend too much time on it, but you have that ability to create and manage projects from Teams. You can also set it up in Project for the Web so that Teams is actually permissioning your Project for the Web. So whoever you add to the team are the people who can see the project and access it, and you can manage that schedule fully from within Teams. You also have the ability to embed the entire Project for the Web app. Teams gives you the ability to embed Power Apps, and because we're using a Power App here and using that solution for Project for the Web, you can just embed the entire app on the sidebar of Teams, and you never really need to leave Teams at that point because everything is there that you need. Document storage, the project management schedule, your RAID logs, it's all in Teams for you once you have the app in there. You also have the ability to utilize Power Automate Dataverse connectors. Now, Project Online also has Power Automate connectors, but the Dataverse, which is being developed a lot more by Microsoft, has a significantly larger number of connectors that can do a lot of different things. So the capabilities within Power Automate for sort of automating your different work and what you may need to do for workflows, sending emails automatically based on approvals, things like that. It's really easy to integrate that with Project for the Web due to the fact that we have access to those Dataverse connectors in there. And anyone who's worked Power Automate before will sort of know that if you've used it with Dataverse, at least, that it has a really wide range of things you can actually use for triggers and different things you can send with that tool. And then lastly is the use of Canvas apps to add functionality and improve the Project for the Web experience. So Project for the Web is a model-driven app based on that platform, but because it's in that Power Apps platform, you also have that access to Canvas apps. Sam mentioned, and I mentioned as well a little bit about the modules and things you can add on top of Project for the Web. Canvas apps opens up, even more possibilities within that area. For example, one of the things we've seen around that is timesheets. There's no timesheet capability in Project for the Web, but at CPS we've been working on modules within Canvas apps to provide a timesheeting app that works with Project for the Web. And again, that module would work by just dragging and dropping it into the system as a solution. It's very easy to deploy. So Canvas apps opens up a whole new range of functionality. So if there are missing pieces that you think Project for the Web may not be able to do for you, there are extra things that can be configured and developed to improve the solution and extend it even further, right? So we have all this native integration, and it makes life quite easy, especially if you're already in the M365, ecosystem. So just going to jump onto a quick demo now. So I'm going to hope the demo gods stay kind to me. That's the wrong one. Cool. So hopefully everyone can see my screen that I swapped to. So this here is an example project for the web environment that I have, right? So this solution's been developed with a little bit of config on top of it that's further than out of the box configuration, but it gives a nice demonstration of some of the things you can do quite easily with Project for the Web. So the first thing let's touch on is at the side, we have very easy navigation across all of our different areas. 3 key areas that you're going to get is requests, programs, and projects. So requests adds for a really easy ideation sort of phase for projects, and it comes out of the box with the Project for the Web Accelerator. What it allows us to do is basically have an area to store our different ideas and concept projects, and then with that comes a out of the box flow which will migrate requests into projects once they've been approved. So some really great functionality immediately there without even having to do any configuration on top of it. So this project request functionality can be really helpful if you do have that pre-project ideation phase and you want to track everything that's coming through the pipeline. We then have projects and programs, which are probably the stars of the show. Our programs act as sort of our buckets for all of our projects. So within a program, I can see all of the projects that are within it. I have some high-level overview of how many projects in there are active, how many are at risk, things like that, because I've related different projects to these programs. So that relationship is there, and I can see all the information and roll it up at any point I need to. And then obviously the one probably waiting for, projects. So obviously it's a project solution. The projects area, it's going to give us access to see all of the projects that we can see within the solution. This view that you're seeing at the moment is actually a view that's been customized to show projects within a specific program, which is the marketing events program. You can also use this as a total portfolio view. So I can go into summary here and see a total view of all the projects within my portfolio and see at a very high level sort of how things are doing. I can see the overall health of things, effort health, costs, forecasts, all of the different things at a high level at this sort of portfolio view. So you may do things like this with Power BI as well, having those Power BI portfolio reports, but the ability to just come into your projects area and see all projects within a certain program or within a specific portfolio of projects makes it very easy to see all of that at a high level. Now, this is obviously just the basic information shown for projects. You can then drill into them. I'm just going to jump back to my marketing events view and jump into one of the projects. So if you open up a project, it then drills into all the information and detail around that project, all the different metadata that's captured for that project, and everything you sort of need to see in detail, right? So initially we get sent to a home page. There's a couple things on this page. You can see different fields I can track against my project that have been configured. And just to mention all of this, everything I'm showing is fully tailorable and configurable to whatever you want. If you want project requests, programs, if you don't want them, if you want different fields, different views, all of that's totally configurable and customizable. Okay, there's no limits to what I can customize on these pages that you're seeing. Okay, so this is an example of an information page for one of my projects. Has some very simple information. What stage is it? State is it? Things like that. And you can also see at the top the really nice process flow integration that Project for the Web has. Now, I don't know if anyone here, I know there's about 20% of people who use Project Online and has ever tried using Project Online workflows. They're not super intuitive or useful, and they can break quite a bit. Project for the Web has a much smoother and simpler workflow process. So you can see I've got my different stage gates up here. In these stage gates, you can configure things like what fields are required for this stage before you go to the next one. You can also see how long you've been in a certain phase. So I've been here for 3 months. You can change what fields display when you're in a certain stage. So there's a lot of things you can do using this process flow. Again, you don't have to use the process flow option, but it adds a lot of functionality to the solution and adds a really nice visual to see where your project actually is and how it's progressing. So we have these business process flows or workflows at the top of our projects, and these add that more in-depth sort of scheduling and tracking capabilities. You can integrate these with things like Power Automate as well. So if you want to send Power Automates off, send emails out based on certain things that happen in stages, you can definitely do that as well, right? So that integration with Power Automate comes out in these process flows as well. So that's just a very basic information page with our different workflows at the top. You can see along the top here in Project for the Web, when I join into a project, I can see all of the different tabs and items I have related to a project. Now, one of the key and core ones is going to be your schedule, right? Your schedule is where all your tasks are kept, and it's where you see all of that information around what resources are assigned, what tasks you have, all of that information. So there are 4 views that you get in the schedule with Microsoft with Project for the Web. You get this initial grid view, which is a nice high-level view of your tasks, shows in a very easy to see grid manner. Here's my tasks, here's the assigned to users, here's the duration, start and finish, right? So very simple, easy to see. You also then get 2 other views natively. You get the board and the timeline view. Now the board view is very much a Kanban board. So if you use Planner or any other type of Kanban board solution, we have that ability built into Project for the Web, and you can manage your tasks in this way. Instead, if you wanted to, you can manage them in both ways if you want to. And you can use this Kanban board just like you would any other board, but I think I'm popping that into completed. But I can move things across into these different areas, right? And sort of use this as I would use any regular Kanban board, okay? The last thing we have is timeline. Now this is going to be probably the thing you're most familiar with if you've been using, where's my scroll bar? There we go. So it's probably the thing you're most familiar with if you've been using scheduling tools, is the timeline. It provides that nice visual view of each of your tasks, shows what's related to what, percentage complete for the tasks, also introduces some functionality like allowing you to quickly drag and drop dependencies on different tasks, allows you to extend tasks if you want to. Okay, so this timeline has functionality to it. It's not just a visual display. And you can choose to manage your tasks in any of these 3 methods, right? You can manage them in the grid view, the board view, or the timeline view, and they're all integrated with each other. In the timeline view as well, you can also click on a task and see a bit more detail about it if you want to. So things like what the actual effort is, what dependencies the task has, okay, things like that, what bucket it's in, what's the percent complete. So I did mention it's a bit more simplistic than Project Professional. You can see here that it basically just has total effort, how much is completed, remaining. There's no options for like splitting that across the resources that are assigned. It's more of just like a total bucket of effort. So it is more simplistic, but it has all this capability to manage schedules at this simple level. And as I said, it's going to be pretty much enough for most levels of project management. Only when you get to certain requirements like in-depth demand forecasting do you need higher levels of scheduling. So you have those 3 different schedules. Also, recently Microsoft have added the ability to have charts as well embedded in your schedule. And so you can see a nice chart-based view. These are some of the integrated dashboards I was talking about earlier. Just one example of them is the task-specific one. So you have these dashboards here that can be integrated and sort of show you a more visual overview of all your tasks for that project. So a really nice, simple to use, very clean scheduling tool. I find that it's a lot easier to pick up that scheduling tool than Microsoft Projects as well, because the UI is a bit more intuitive. So it's nice from a training perspective too. Now, I won't go into detail on all of these at the top because there's a lot of them, just of time, but you can see all the different related items we have to a project. So those of you who are familiar with RAID management, you have your risks, issues all stored up at the top here. I can see all the items that are related to my project. So I can see there's a risk for COVID-19. I can drill into those risks related to my project, see all the detail that's stored around it, okay? I can create new risks from here. And the same thing goes for all of those different lists you see at the top there, right? So you have all of this stuff for your project, all these different items and RAID items you can just add up at the top here. You also have things like this status page, which is a RAG tracking page, which allows you to see the current RAGs of your project, again, configurable. And it has a nice status report section at the bottom for actually adding historical status reports, so I can see what my RAGs look like previously. So if I clicked a new status report, I can see in here, there's some extra information around narratives, but I have those same RAGs that I saw on the previous page, and I can create a, say, this is as of today, set my RAGs to whatever I want and save that. And then using reporting, I can refer back to this and sort of see what were my RAGs back at that point in time. Obviously it's manual. There are ways of automating things like this, but you know, it's a nice thing to have to be able to sort of set your statuses and RAGs for your project. And the last thing I'll touch on before we head off to look at some reports is a report actually, but just sort of showing you the embedded nature reports. So we'll look at the standalone reporting dashboard, but just to show you what I was talking about earlier, among the tabs for this individual project, I can natively embed Power BI reports directly into it. I have a status report, a risk dashboard, an issue dashboard. Not too much data in this project I chose, but you can see that you can just put these reports, embed them as part of an item, and then see all that information filtered for that item, right? So that's an example of one project, very quick run through. You can configure this obviously to your heart's content, have what you want to store in here, relate it to whatever you want. And all of that is very easy to configure and set up. Now, as I said, this is slightly further than the out-of-the-box configuration, but it's certainly not a difficult point to get towards some of this stuff and adding in these different tabs and tables. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick look through the reports, and then I'll finish up the demo and pass back to Sam. So, oh, that's good. There you go. Cool. So with the accelerator tool that I mentioned earlier, one of the solution starters, you actually get this reporting dashboard straight out of the box. It has a number of different dashboards in it related to the items that come with the accelerator. So it has a dashboard for your requests. You have a dashboard for your entire program health. Again, I assume this hasn't refreshed then. You have your financials, full portfolio health. So you can actually see the full RAGs breakdown for your whole portfolio instead of just an individual program. You have dashboards for your portfolio showing the effort across all your projects, task counts, progress of your projects. So all this just comes with the accelerator. It's a fully out of the box solution. You have financials at the portfolio level, timelines. So if you want to see a Gantt at your full portfolio level, you can have things like that. Milestone tracking at your portfolio level, seeing which milestones are upcoming in the next 30 days. And there are a lot of reports in here, so I won't sort of super dive into each of them, but you can see that there's a wide range of different reports that come immediately with the solution, at least the accelerator solution, that can just be put on Project for the Web out of the box with very minimal configuration and just start working immediately, right? So we have this in-depth breadth of reports, and these can then be configured, tailored, added to, embedded elsewhere in the app, and it's really a great tool for reporting and embedding reports. And I will leave it there. I'll also just quickly show the home dashboard because these are the integrated dashboard pieces that I wanted to mention and show. But I'll leave it there and hand back to Sam just because I'm cautious of time.
Thank you, Chris. No, I'm here, absolutely here. Yep. Cool. That's great demo. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed. So as Chris says, we can certainly do some longer, more in-depth demos with anyone who wants to. Thank you for those, and we'll run through them quickly. And there's been some really good questions coming through actually, which we will run through and share with everybody. But thanks for those asking questions in the background as well. We can certainly run through some more tailored demos against some of those use cases for you if we need to. Couple of quick slides before we move to one last poll and open up for Q&A. So in terms of moving to project, and I am going to ask a question in a minute around who may or may not be looking to move to it. I guess we have 3 use case scenarios that we do a lot to customers. So the first one just being a POC, so a rapid POC, so that people can go in and test the tool set, have a look around, see how it works, and they can be put together very, very quickly with Project for the Web, which is nice. Whereas Project Online took a little bit more effort than it does within Project Online. We can do full deployments, so run through workshops and run through full deployments. I know I can see there's a couple of customers on the call who we've done full deployments with. Thank you, those guys, for turning up to the webinar and listening up to what we're up to. But we've done some full deployments with customers right the way through, configuration and training and rollout, and then supporting them through that. And then your other option is migration. So we've got a number of customers, and Chris, I just want to bring up the animation on the next slide. There are multiple migration options from other third-party tools, so things that we're aware of, like Trello and Monday.com, into Project for the Web. But there's also migration paths available from Microsoft products themselves. So if you're using something like Planner and you've hit the limitations that we know are there, there's a way to migrate to Project for the Web from Planner. If you're just looking to create a new Project for the Web instance, we can do that. And obviously, I know a number of people are using things like Microsoft Project Online currently and are looking for migration. So there are lots of migration options available to you. And as we say, Project for the Web as an application is getting new features time and time again. I catch up with one of the product leads at Microsoft on a fortnightly basis, and he's always telling me the next exciting thing that they're releasing. So that's really good to see. So just going to put up one last poll. Let me just launch this poll. So just a question really for the people in the audience: are you looking to migrate to Project for the Web? A kind of a yes, no, or undecided? Be really useful. I think people are very quick, which is fantastic. 50% of the way through at the moment, which is fantastic. For those who are voting yes, that's fantastic. For those who are voting undecided, we'll move on to a next step slide, but please do get in touch and let us know what's triggering that indecision, because we can certainly answer some of your current use cases and help you decide, hopefully yes, but whether it's a yes or a no. So yeah, if you're undecided, we absolutely like to chat to you again and understand how we can help you make a decision either way, which would be fantastic. We are 90% voted now, which is fantastic. So thank you for voting. And I will close that response now, which is fantastic. So I'll close that poll. So we'll just move on to next steps. So as I say, if you want to talk to us, we can, we offer, I say 45 minutes. It doesn't have to be 45 minutes. It can be 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It can be an hour. We love to talk to you about what you're currently doing, particularly those of you who are using Excel. It's a very much a natural step from Excel into something like Project for the Web. We've done this hundreds of times with customers over, since 1995. We're, one of the biggest gold partners for project and program management, or Microsoft partners in the UK. We also offer PMO and PPM kind of current state assessments as well. So if, leaving the technology to one side, we also offer kind of business consulting and making sure that the processes that you're going to need to support these tool sets are where they need to be as well. But if you do have questions, if you clicked yes, if you clicked undecided, I mean, even if you click not at the moment, if I'm honest, we'd be really interested to reach out to chat to you so we could show you a much more tailored demo, much more detailed, and really understand what it is that you are doing at the moment, what you're looking to do, and talk through which of the tools would be best suited. There are other work management tools in the Microsoft stack. So there are things like Planner, which we've mentioned. There's Azure DevOps. There's project operations as well. So there are a number of different tools out there. Project Online and particularly Project for the Web aren't the only ones. So a lot of you will be using Microsoft tools. You'll have Microsoft licensing, and I think it's really important to understand how that licensing can support you with your work management going forwards. Next slide, please. Open up to some questions. So we have a few, which I will run through the questions that I've answered in the background, but I think they're worth sharing with everyone. Now we've got a few minutes, but please do keep firing them in, and we'll keep the call open until we get to the end of the questions or the questions dry up. The first one came, and it was a question around how's Project for the Web licensed. And Chris, you may be better answering this, but in essence, it uses Project Plan 1 and Project Plan 3 licensing, depending who you users and what you want to do in the tool set. But Chris, I don't know if you've got a more detailed answer on that.
Yeah, so Plan 3 is basically your project manager license. You can also have Plan 1, which is like a view-only license, essentially, for Project for the Web. And then also there is also E3 and E5 licensing for configuration of Project for the Web. So there's that to consider. But that's pretty much it in terms of licensing. So for project managers, they just need the plan licensing, and then whoever's configuring the tool and editing the app will need E3, E5 licensing.
Fantastic, thank you. And we generally find it's cheaper to license than something like Project Online as a rule. I think they're about to integrate, and it's being rolled out into tenants at the moment, the ability to progress tasks that exist within Project for the Web, but actually progress them within the tasks pages within Teams, and you'll be able to do that without a license, and that's fantastic because that means you don't then have to license all your team members. I've got another question around, does it cater for different methodologies? So it does. I think you would have seen from the demo, there's the Kanban board views, which are much more related to Agile. But where Chris showed you workflows across the top, you can have different methodologies, different workflows for different types of projects. We can also integrate with things like Azure DevOps. So we've got a lot of customers who are maybe managing the schedule and the milestone plan within Project for the Web, but they have the detail broken down into epics and stories and sprints within Azure boards, for example, and we can report across the two if we want to. So there's definitely that ability, which is good. We had a question around Project for the Web and how we were able to see all the projects within the portal. So I think one of the things people think of when they think of Project for the Web is they think about the project add-in that you can add into a Teams site, where you can, in essence, create a single project. And you don't necessarily see the rest of that model-driven app that Chris showed you with the risks and the issues and everything else. So there is a slight difference between, say, if you just go into kind of project.com and create a plan on its own, it can look like a very basic scheduling engine that doesn't have all the add-ins. And obviously, what we were showing you there was the model-driven app element. So that's, I guess, where some of that confusion comes in. And I think the same question, it said it also looks a lot easier to use than something like Project Online. So I think the individual in question said they tried Project Online. It was actually quite detailed and quite complex and quite hard for people to use. This seems much simpler, and that's absolutely true. What we do find is Project for the Web is opened up a number of use cases. So to professional PMOs and professional project management functions for sure, but also to the occasional project managers and the people who maybe aren't career PMs or the accidental project manager and just want a simple tool to manage a very basic schedule, capture some risks and issues. And it works really well in that scenario as well. Let's have a look. Got another question around the tasks baseline page. So Chris, you might be best answering that, but my understanding is that's a kind of a Power Automate add-in that we've added to take a baseline so we can compare current state against how it was at a particular point in time. But I believe Microsoft are actually releasing some baseline capability soon.
Yeah, so obviously because it wasn't there previously, we developed like one of our drag and drop solutions that I mentioned to do exactly that, take a snapshot of the tasks, and then the baselines page shows what the tasks were at that time of the baseline, to try and be similar to Microsoft Project. But as you say, I think Microsoft are looking to release baselining functionality, but we do have that solution up until that point, which can just be drag and dropped into any Project for the Web environment.
Absolutely. Fantastic, thank you. Got another question here. If someone has a P1 license, can they still sign off tasks, or can they only view the tasks that the PM would need to update with a P3 license? So, sorry, Chris, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, so P1 is purely view for project for the web. Any editing of projects, tasks, anything, you have to have P3 license for. So P1 does give you full view access, but it doesn't give you edit access.
But as on the point of the development, as I say, that Microsoft are releasing the ability to progress tasks that are surfaced in Teams without a license moving forward, and I believe that is being rolled out. So, but I can talk to our contacts at Microsoft to find out for you there for the person who asked that question. One other question, oh no, two other questions. Where would a project manager store documentation? So on one of the tabs, I guess Chris didn't cover, there is a documents, basically there's a documents tab. Behind that sits a SharePoint document library, and all the documentation can be stored within that, and therefore will pick up all the version control and all the check-in, check-out, and all the functionality that you would expect to find via SharePoint.
Just to add to that as well, so in the demo I showed, it's a SharePoint-based one. If you integrate with Teams, then you get access natively to the Teams document storage as well. But yeah, the one that I was demonstrating is based on just a SharePoint library. But if you do integrate with Teams, you can just use standard Teams file storage for that project. There's sort of two options. I've done both with clients, but it just depends on if you're integrating with Teams or not.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chris. And then another question, does it integrate with Jira? That's a great question. Chris, I don't know if you know, I know there are a number of connectors. We're using Power Automate. I'm not sure if there's one to Jira or not.
I believe there are Power Automate connectors for Jira. I haven't personally used them, but it may be possible. I'd have to check. But I think I've seen Jira connectors in there before for Power Automate at least.
I'm pretty sure there is a connector. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Excellent. I think that's all the questions that are on the page. There's a comment just come in that says, good to know integration with Teams is possible. So yeah, absolutely. So the actual app that Chris showed you, the model-driven app, you can actually integrate that entire app within Teams, but just for a specific project. So if you use Teams to collaborate on all your projects already, you can basically integrate just the application directly to that particular project within Teams, so that people don't then have to go outside of Teams at all when it comes to managing the projects, which is fantastic. Excellent. I think that's all the questions, and we're on pretty much on about time actually, as it is, which is fantastic for timing. We will stay on just for a couple of minutes in case any additional questions come through. If not, thank you very much for your time. It's much appreciated. And as you say, if you do have any further questions moving forward, please do get in touch with one of us, and we would be absolutely delighted to answer those for you.